Brian, do you want to give us an update? I don't, maybe he's on mute. Okay, maybe, is he still on, Corey?
He's there. It doesn't look like you're
He's
muted.
moving around.
Yeah.
He's moving around. Okay.
Brian, do you happen to have like headphones or something that's plugged in? This happened to me earlier, that's why I asked. Like Bluetooth, anything? Can't hear you.
I'm gonna restart.
There you are.
Now you can hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Wow, okay, weird, sorry about that. I didn't do anything different, so next time just wave at me that you can't hear me. So what I was starting to say was, as we near the end of the year, we got a lot of final things that we need to do. Last week, we did the year-end budget, balanced budget, make sure that we're all in check for the year. This week, we got some, approval of contracts for 2021, salary adjustments for 2021, just kind of the normal year-end stuff. One of the things we did recently, and I don't know if Public Works will talk about this, but we did approve an increase on water and sewer rate adjustment for 2021. You've heard me talk about this before. For 2021, it will be a 5.17% combined increase. This is lower than the national average, and it's all due to the capital improvements that we're making for the Northwest Water Treatment Plant, and eventually the sewer water treatment plant down south. So all told, it's all close to $1 billion worth of capital improvements, and that's how we're going to have to pay for it. But it is much lower than the national average, and we're still lower than our peer cities in the region on an average monthly water bill. So again, trying to make sure we're taking care of our neighbors and keeping those rates as low as possible. Another cool thing that just kind of popped up on our radar, Public Works has been working with me for several years on this. And last meeting, we approved design improvements for 13th Street between Ridge and Tyler, north of Northwest High. That section of road is really kind of difficult to navigate, especially if you're coming out of Northwest. There's no center turn lane to sometimes bridge that as you go through. This is going to widen it to 5 lanes and a dedicated center turn lane all the way through that Northwest High footprint. It'll be much safer. Hopefully Lori might even talk about that a little bit, but that'll be done next year. And so that's a nice new improvement for us. One of the things I asked that we're going to hear later on the agenda, there's been a lot of talk about a pilot project that we've been doing with our fire stations out west, 16 and 17. Some concern, 16 is there on Tyler at about 16th Street. 17th is over on Maple near Mays Road. We're doing some shifting there to try to help within calls for 16, and Snow put together a pilot project. There's been a lot of concerns about, are we covered right? Do we have enough staff for both? That's what she's going to talk about tonight, that project and where it's at and what we're hoping to find out through it. So just trying to answer some questions we're hearing in the community. So hopefully she's doing that right now for DAB 4 and presenting over there on their virtual DAB meeting. And that's why we had the later start tonight. So hopefully it'll work out just fine and we won't delay your evening much longer. So with that, I'll quit. Unless anyone have any questions.
Any questions for Brian? No, thank you, Brian.
Councilman Blueball, or excuse me, Councilman Fry.
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is Colby Robertson, captain with the Wichita Fire Department. I could present the numbers for November before Chief Snow and Chief Pavelski get over here if you'd like.
Okay, when it gets, I don't know where we're at. we're ready for probably staff reports, but that'll be JV's. He'll
Yeah.
call for those.
Well,
Okay.
let's just start with fire then. You can just go ahead and go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like I butt in there. I didn't mean to do that.
You just introduce
It's all
yourself.
good.
Welcome, Colby.
Thank you very much. Numbers for November for District 5, Wichita Fire Department responded to about 300 incidents, 254 of which were medical calls, 41 service alarms, and 5 fire alarms. Of those 5 fire alarms, 2 were significant fires that resulted in fairly high dollar loss. And 1 was determined to be arson, and 1 is still under investigation. And that's really all I have for you besides the presentation from Chief Snow.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Colby?
Sorry, Colby, what was the time frame for that data?
That was November of 2020.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All of November, yeah.
Colby, which station house are you at?
I'm filling in as a battalion chief at Station 16, which is our Battalion 2.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Colby. And then we'll go move to the community police report. Who do we have tonight? Lori?
I am Lori Kimmery. I am
Larry?
on 19B community policing officer. I'm
Good.
obviously I'm off today, so just I guess you wanted me to touch on the kind of the accidents on the left turns at Northwest. Anywhere you have left turns going in or out of a place with that volume of people, you're going to have accidents, especially teenagers that think they can make it, across traffic left, either out of the private drive or going into the private drive. So I think that turn lane should help a little bit. So, that way it'll give people more, I guess, passing area on the north side of 13th there. So hopefully that'll help. A few things, the catalytic converters, I know that that's a hot topic right now. And until we get some laws changed, our hands are tied. We have caught some people red-handed underneath the cars, then they're getting charged with petty theft because the loss is under $1,000. So the court's not even looking at it. The jails are tossing people out after a couple hours being in there. So they're right back out doing it over and over again. So we can't even get them with possession of stolen property because we can't prove that it's stolen because there's no VIN number stamped on it. There's no report made on it. We don't even know what cars they belong to. So our hands are really tight on this for right now until some laws change, because even unless they admit, yes, I'm selling this for scrap metal, the DA's office won't even look at it. So, I mean, they're getting charged with misdemeanor crimes for this. So it's easy money for them. They're making $20, $30 on these catalytic converters for drug money. And the people buying them, we can't even arrest them. So they're selling them for $200, $300, in mass quantities to Texas, and we're just sitting there watching them. So it's really hard for us. And I know people are frustrated because they're having to spend, like $600,000 to get these things fixed. But we're not giving up. We're still trying. We're just working on it. So there's that. The toy run we're having tomorrow. It's like a toy drive, or sorry, not tomorrow, Wednesday. Over at the community policing office at 5003 West Central at our office, we're going to have people drop off toys for the domestic violence shelters that we do every year. So they're going to benefit the Harbor House and Family Crisis Center. So we're going to do a press release on that tomorrow. And with Christmas in full swing, we're doing Christmas patrols in your higher volume shopping centers. So, like over by the Kohl's area and then New Market Square, we're dedicating a couple hours a day to just drive through the parking lots, making sure people's cars aren't getting broken into, stuff like that. So, and to be honest with you, it's not very busy this year. I know with all things considered, but we're still out there making sure nobody's breaking into cars. So that's all we really have. Is there any questions for me?
Lori, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you know where or what happened with the accident at Park Ridge and Chambers where the elderly man died? Do you know what happened with that?
When did that happen?
Early in November.
Early November. I don't know anything about that. I'd have to look it up. If you want to email me, I can get back with you on that, and after I look it up.
Okay.
It's
I remember
lk.gov.
I remember when Angie asked about this, I talked with Captain Duff and he said that there was a suspect. I just don't know what happened after that.
Oh, you're talking about the guy that was crossing the street.
Yeah.
Right.
Video, and they had, I knew they have him in custody. So the guy that did drive off, I think they did follow him. So we had video from a neighbor that showed where he lived. So we did go pick him up. It's just that I think we're waiting on toxicology reports and stuff on that. So
Thank you.
I don't know if he's been formally charged, because usually we wait for the test results on that before we make an official arrest on the DUI part. So
Thank you.
Jose asked in the chat if you have a flyer for the toy run.
I can email you one. I have it. So I can email you and get that to you tomorrow. If I know we put it on Facebook, but I can get you a flyer I made for it last year.
Lori,
Yes.
Okay.
my question is I noticed that, especially it happened on Black Friday, there was a city bus and they had dropped several people off at Central Park and Maze.
Mhm.
And then they went to the corners and had their little signs, asking for money and stuff. Just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. And again, it just seems like every time I drive by there on the weekends, there's someone, trying, to panhandle. And just wanted
Right.
to make sure you all knew about it.
Oh, we're very aware of it.
Okay. Sorry,
There's
my grandson's getting ready to
follow.
call
I
up
know
here.
that if they're in the center median, if they're in the center median, they can't be there. If they step out into traffic, we can give them a citation. I know New Market Square signed an affidavit with us, so we have that on file. So if they're actually on their property, not on the city sidewalk, we can address that. But I mean, to be honest with you, we're kind of short-staffed right now with the COVID, so we're just trying to keep up with the 911 calls. But we do know what's out there, and I know that a couple months ago we did a special assignment, our team, about addressing the panhandlers. But I think they got the word out, because the day we went out there was nobody there. Like the whole city, there was nobody there. So we can cite them if we do see them. Anybody else?
Okay. Okay. Thank
All
you,
right,
Lori.
well, thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you. And we'll move to Parks and Rec, and I think I saw Dave there.
Yes, good evening, JV. How you doing?
Good, good.
So it's been a while since I've gotten connected. I've had computer issues and so forth, so glad to be back tonight.
Good.
Last night we had the virtual Christmas tree lighting with the mayor down at NASCAR Park, which was kind of fun. It's something different. And we lit the Christmas tree, and we lit the tree over in Old Town and the old tree down at Century 2. And so we have now all of our holiday lights lit up. The trees are lit up and looking good. We had a nice visit from Mr. and Mrs. Claus last night, stopped by to talk with the mayor. So that was fun and so forth. And he's got Wichita on the radar, of course. So we're good to go there. Mr. Hauptman wanted me to talk about CAPRA. CAPRA is our certification program that the National Parks and Recreation Association uses to up the game, so to speak, for parks and recreation agencies to make sure they're using best practices. And if you pass the certification, then you get an attaboy, basically, nationwide. And so, there's about 28,000 park and recreation agencies across the country, and only about 200 of them are actually accredited through this certification program. And so back in 2016, we did our initial visit where they came and they check out all of our information and make sure that we're meeting these standards that have been developed. And now 5 years later, they're getting ready to come back and visit again. in during the second round of visits, you have to meet all the required standards that are in the certification program. And Parks and Recreation, the local agency here, we've been working very hard on getting all those standards met and getting all the documentation that's necessary. So Mr. Hauptman wanted me to mention that our visitors will be coming in March to recertify our program. And we're very proud of being an accredited program within the National Parks and Recreation Association because, like I said, not everybody meets that criteria. The next thing that we're going to do is apply for the Gold Medal Award, which is you even have to take your standards to a higher level to meet that Gold Medal Award criteria. So we're working hard on CAPRA. For out there in District 5, DAB 5, over there in Swanson's Park, we're getting ready to do a small capital improvement project over there. The walking path needs to be rerouted because the Cowskin Creek banks keep caving in. So we've got a little CIP project that's going to be starting over there at the end of this month, 1st of February, or excuse me, 1st of January, to reroute that walking path. And then at some point in time, we've got to figure out how to get CIP money to address that footbridge. The footbridge is in bad shape and needs to be replaced. So that'll be one of our projects that we'll be listing on the 2001-2022 CIP process. So as far as recreation going, recreation hasn't been able to do a lot. We've had to cancel the Night with Santa, which was always one of our signature programs. So we've canceled the Night with Santa. We're disappointed in that. And quite a few others. We're trying to get some classes to go at the recreation centers. We're renting out our buildings as much as possible so that people can come in and practice basketball or volleyball or whatever. But we're getting ready to plan the winter program and get ready to get out the Evolve magazine so that people know about that. So that's getting ready to be published. So, and of course, we still have our light display down at Watson Park. They're having the winter display down there. So if you want to get out and do a drive-through type winter activity, you can go down there to Watson Park. And of course, we have Botanica going. You can either do a walkthrough or a drive-through over at Botanica. I've been through it. It looks good. Very enjoyable to drive through even light display over there. So other than that, that's about all I got to report on, JV.
Okay, Dave, thanks. Any questions for Dave?
Hey, Dave, I drove by Auburn Hills Golf Course today and the driving range was packed.
Yeah.
So we got 3 good days of weather. Golf has been exceeding our numbers throughout the year because of COVID. It's one of the few bright spots. Auburn Hills is not slated to shut down for any winter.
No, they are killing it right now. The month of November was some of their best numbers ever. So far, the first few days, 8 days in December, we've surpassed our revenue goals already. So yeah, right now golf is really, and this whole week's supposed to be in the 60s. It's perfect time to get out there and go golf. So yes, we are getting some good numbers at the golf courses right now.
And Jose just had a question on the chat. Any specific time for the drive-through part of the Botanica illuminations? Are they time
Yes.
specific or?
You do. You have to buy your tickets in advance. And on your ticket, it'll tell you when your time is to drive through. So I think it goes in 30-minute increments. So if you go buy your tickets, you're going to be the 7 o'clock group. or if you buy them later on, you'll be the 7:30 time. So there are specific times to drive through on your, and both the walkthrough and the drive-through, you have to pre-purchase your tickets.
Mhm.
Good question.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions for Dave? Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, JV.
You're welcome. We'll move to the library and to Tracy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Partridge, the manager of the branch. And the first thing that I want to let everyone know is the library has actually gone back to providing curbside and drive-through only service. So we're not providing limited in-building services as we were. We've gone back to providing curbside and drive-through service only. That is a library decision, and it is because of the rising number of COVID cases. One good thing with our curbside and drive-through only, we're offering more services than when we did this actually in May. So that's a positive thing. What people can do is they can actually place holds on things through our catalog, and then they can actually pick them up at the library. They can call us and ask us to set aside things and then pick them up at the library. But we're also doing copying, faxing, and printing, and issuing library cards, and then doing virtual programs. So we are doing a lot more than we did back in May when we were only offering curbside only. And one of the things that we are unfortunately not able to do right now is actually the in-building public computing, and that is something that has been challenging for our customers. So for information about the library's COVID response, what you can do is go to wichitalibrary.org/COVID-19, and that will give you an idea of what it is that we're doing. One of the virtual program series that we're offering right now is actually called Cooking Matters. It's a collaboration between the Wichita Public Library and actually the Greater Wichita YMCA. It is on Tuesdays around the lunch hour. It's intended for adults who are parents or caregivers of children, trying to think, and pregnant women. Basically, what that program is desired to do is actually help them plan budget-friendly meals and give them some cooking advice. People who participate in 3 of the program sessions and then actually, I believe, fill out a survey, they get a $20 gift card to buy groceries with. So that's a really good thing. And there's only one Tuesday that they're not having a program, and that's on Tuesday, December 29th. And that series runs through January 12th. But you can actually visit our website for more details and to register, because you do have to register. It's at wichitalibrary.org/events. Now this year, because of COVID, unfortunately, we did have to reschedule our NEA Big Read program. We have rescheduled it for January and February, and it will actually be a virtual program. And it's going to run January 9th through February 21st. This year's title is actually Circe by Madeline Miller. And our virtual kickoff celebration is going to be on KPTS Channel 8. And you can either watch it Saturday, January 9th at 2:30 p.m. They're also going to be streaming it live at kpts.org. And to kind of get visitors, or I should say viewers, in the mood, they're going to have, I should say that's going to be the intent of the program. And then also to tell them where we're going to be handing out free copies of Madeline Miller's Circe. Now, if you are interested in more information about the Big Read, you can go to bigreadwichita.org, and that will list all of the Wichita Public Library's activities related to it. But it is really a community activity, and there are communities around us, Derby, Andover, etc., that are doing things as well. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is our winter activities. Really, we're going in a virtual format, and you can get a listing of those activities at wichitalibrary.org/events. They are offered through Zoom, and you do have to register for them. And then what happens is that the day before the program and then the day of the program, you're actually sent information with a link to the activity. And so those are just a few announcements about the library. Does anybody have questions?
Any questions for Tracy? Nope, you must have done a good job.
I was gonna say, everybody else got questions, but I will not let my feelings be hurt.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good, thank you. And lastly, we'll have Public Works and Utilities. Do we have Steve tonight, or who do we have?
Sean.
Sean, okay.
Sean May is Chief Design Engineer for the city. I'll start out just going through some projects that are under construction or under development. The first project is 13th Street between the Kowski and 135. That project is open to two-way traffic now, both on 13th and 135th. Sidewalk construction and the multi-use path construction is still underway. That is not completed yet. The surface course will be installed once weather gets warm enough to actually cut the surface course down. So you have about 2 inches of asphalt on top that is not done, and they'll do the final pavement markings with that. And that'll happen in 2021 when it gets warm enough to do that. 37th Street and Tyler signalization project. If you noticed, they started working out there. They're working on some of the stuff prior to the poles actually getting here. The poles we actually pre-ordered with this project. So they are expected to come in 2021, early 2021. The pole ordering process has gotten worse and worse, and COVID didn't help any of it, just because some of the plants and stuff had to actually shut down. But you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 12, 14, 16 weeks getting those. So we started actually pre-ordering some of these poles, and this is one of the projects we've done that. They're out there doing some of the underground work and pouring some of the bases and stuff like that prior to the poles actually getting here. Next project, Harvest swimming pool. Right now, what they're doing mainly is underground work. So the plumbing that serves the pool that needs to be replaced or needs to be upgraded or needs to be changed, accommodate the improvements out there is what's under construction right now. That project will be open when the pool's open in 2021. Pavement preservation, as far as the 2020 program, more or less everything is complete. There are some residential streets in Westlink that'll happen in January. The 2021 program, this is the first time we will have talked about it here. So I'll go through some of it. I can walk you guys through where to find this information. There's actually an interactive map if you want to go look at your area, figure out where any of the streets in your area are going to be have any maintenance on, and what type of maintenance, and I can talk you through a little bit of when that's going to happen. So we'll start out with asphalt overlays. This is mainly on the arterial streets, so 119th from Maple to 13th, Central from Mays to Tyler, Central from Woodchuck to Ridge, and then Maple from 119th to Mays. Those will start second, third quarters of 2021. Micro surfacing, which is mainly limited to your residential streets. You'll have pavement repairs. So this is kind of a two-phase thing where they'll go out and do pavement repairs, and then they'll come back and actually do a surface, a very thin surface on top of that. So the pavement repairs will start in the first and second quarter of 2021, and then the micro surfacing will start in the second and third quarters of 2021. Crack seal, as far as arterial streets, 135th from a half mile south of 13th to 13th Street. That's a section in that area that actually is still in the city. The piece between Central and that half mile line is still in the county. And then you have Mays Road from Maple to Central, and both of those are third quarter. So crack seal, mainly what they're doing is going out there and cleaning out the cracks, and then putting stuff back in the cracks so you don't get water to penetrate those and cause issues, in particular with freeze thaw of water getting in there and then freezing and thawing, and just the expansion of what that causes. residential streets, there are a number of them that are going to get it. And again, if you want me, I can share my screen and you can look at some of the maps, or you can look at a list, or I can walk you through how to get there, whatever you guys prefer. But those are all going to be in the third quarter. Preservation seals on the arterial streets are Ridge Road from 21st to 96, Central from Tyler to Woodchuck, Central from Ridge 235, and then Maple from 119th to 135th. Those will all be in the third quarter, and the same with the residential streets. Most of those you will probably notice if you live in one of those areas that they have been completed in the last 6 months, year, 2 years. So the preservation seal is something you do fairly quickly after you would do one of the more extensive improvements, and it's to preserve it longer and longer as far as that goes. So that's why you may see some of those that you recognized. I know that section on Central between Ridge and 235 in 2020 was done because I drove through it one day and was not expecting it. It was during the time of day when I went through there, it was quite busy. So the Aquatics Master Plan, Phase 3 is the only thing that we still have under design. Phase 1A, 1B, and 2 are all under construction. Harvest that I mentioned earlier is part of Phase 2. All three, Phase A1, A1A, 1B, and 2 are all going to be open when everything opens for the season in 2021 is the intent, assuming that we don't have any issues with COVID moving forward at that point. But those include pools and splash pads. The Hoover bike path, at this point, what we're looking at doing is signalizing that Hoover and Zoo intersection. There will be a small amount of path built probably with the signalization. The rest of it is still being evaluated for a couple different reasons. But as far as that goes, that intersection will be signalized. The rest of it's coming. It's just when is it to come as far as some of the rest of the path. There's some construction going there. That's right by the Northwest treatment plant. It is one of the things. We're also running into some issues with acquiring some of the right of way north even farther than that. So those are two things that we're still working on as far as that goes. Ridge and Village Circle traffic signal. It's something we're still working on. We've met with the developer. We're meeting again with the developer, talk about options of potentially splitting some of the costs to signalize that. If you have driven it recently, when they redid stuff in 2020, some of the OP3 work, we actually restriped that to a 5-lane through that section. This would be to go in and make some of those more permanent improvements and to signalize that intersection. And then the one that Councilmember Fry talked about, 13th Street in front of Northwest High. If you know the area very well, there's from the half-mile line to Tyler, on the north side, there are decel lanes for the vast majority of it. So the vast majority of it technically is already 5 lanes. The intent is we'll have to fill in a gap. There's a gap that still only has 4 lanes, but then the rest of it would be 5 lanes. But instead of being a decel lane, that'll turn into everything will widen out as far as the through lanes, and then we'll have a center 2-way left turn lane all the way through that area. That is another project like 37th and Tyler, where the school district is chipping in for both of those projects too. One of them is the Wichita School District, and one of them is the Mays School District. As far as Mays South there at 37th, they are helping pay for some of those improvements too. That project, we're using our on-call to start designing it, so we're starting designing it right away. We'll have a discussion when we get closer to construction on when we're going to start construction or not. If school's not going to be happening at school we'll probably start it as soon as we can, as soon as utilities relocated. If school is going to be in person in the spring at any point, we may delay that, but that's something we'll talk to the school district, and we'll obviously bring it back to you guys. And we'll talk through that at that point. But that's one of the things we still have to figure out exactly where we're at. And that's most of what I have. The OP3 stuff, do you want me to bring up a map? Do you want me to just walk you guys through how to get there?
Maybe Corey can just send it out.
Yeah, Corey posted it in the chat.
Okay.
So there's a link there.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, any questions for Sean? Okay, thank you, Sean.
Yep.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion to receive and file all the staff reports?
So moved.
Okay, moved, and is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. There's been a motion and a second to receive and file the staff reports. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Before we move to new business, my phone is running out of energy and I'm gonna go get my charger. However, I have to hold my mouth just right for it to work. So if I go off, maybe Brian can get somebody else to finish up the meeting. So anyway, we'll move on to the new business and the Evergy substation design proposal. Bill Perkins.
Let me give a background on this before Bill starts. So the Northwest Water Treatment Plant requires a separate power station to supply it. So that way it's on its own grid. The location for that is going to be right there on 13th Street, south of Sedgwick County Park. There's a parcel of land between Spinner Cove Lake and the Country Acres neighborhood to the west. The city acquired that, and that's where this power station is going to be. Because it's adjacent to two neighborhoods, the oversight committee has asked for it to, make sure that it fits within the surrounding and that it looks good. And so that's really what this is, to show you what the Evergy plan is for it and any comments that you might have as it relates to the design of it. So with that, Bill.
Thank you, council member. I'm gonna try to share screen. I got a PowerPoint with some slides, although Councilmember Fry just took care of about half the slides. But
I was just trying to set the table. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
You're fine. That and then share. So I guess I'm going to ask somebody, do you see the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right. I just want to make sure. So also I'll mention, also, I don't know, with me, I don't know, virtually on here is Don Henry, our assistant director. And then we also have Andrew Calvert from Evergy, also on here. So as the council member was saying, we're talking about a substation to serve the new water treatment plant that's being built out there. A little bit of background on some stuff that we've done regarding this substation. We did have a public information event. We put door hangers out in the two neighborhoods that were mentioned, Country Acres 4th Edition and Spinnaker Coves Edition. And we put all the information we had online, and we also did it to where if people wanted to come in person, they could. We had that on October 7th, and we got a few comments. Nothing drastic, but we did get a few comments, some of them really good. Future land use, I'll kind of go through them real briefly. The future land use, we don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the site. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute. Noise and light. So lighting was a big question, was if this was going to be lit up all the time. And Evergy's indicated that as long as there's no security issues, as long as it doesn't start getting broke into or something, then they don't keep it lit up. They would only have it lit up if there was like an emergency maintenance or something going on. The only time it would be lit up at night. Construction traffic was a concern that was expressed, and there could be a little bit of effect during construction. Evergy's estimated the design and construction total somewhere between 18 and 24 months. So there could be a little bit of time there. Traffic on 13th is quite congested in the mornings, afternoons, obviously. The lake use and what is happening along the lake, along the edge of the lake, again, that goes back to future land use. And then the aesthetics of the site, which is what Councilmember Fry was mentioning. Then we took it back to our project steering committee, of which Councilmember Fry is a member, on October 30th, and then we're here tonight. So if you're not familiar with the plan for the Northwest Water Treatment Plant, this is kind of an aerial view, basically looking from over top of the zoo. So the north is kind of at an angle up, and so you've got that intersection that Mr. Mellies was talking about here, that they're going to put the signal in, Zoo Boulevard, and then you've got the big ditch back over here to the other side. He mentioned that bike path along Hoover. So there is quite a bit of construction that we're going to have going on with some pipelines and other work, and we're coordinating with engineering on that too, as far as getting that bike path in and not end up putting a bike path in and then tearing it out. So won't go into a whole lot of detail there, but at least give you an overview of that. And then this is a bigger map, higher level map of the area. So this gray hatching up here is that Northwest Water Treatment Plant site. We went through a process with Evergy to identify what was available for power that would meet the power needs of this plant. And there's a 138 kV facility that they have, runs up here basically along the Big Slough Creek. The orange dots here represent their pole line. That's their pole line there. And we went through a process of identifying some areas. We ended up identifying this vacant tract of land down here, and this yellow line to get from the site up to the plant. We are planning on that all being underground. We've worked with Evergy on having that yellow line. They're all underground, so there won't be any additional poles there. I'm gradually just going to zoom in a little bit closer and a little bit closer. So this is a little bit closer on that site. So we've got Spinnaker Coves over here and Country Acres 4th over here. This is the tract of land that was mentioned that was purchased for this substation, and then this orange hatch area is where we're focused in for a substation. So this is the basic substation footprint that's planned. There's currently no specific plans for any of the rest of it. I'll go back one slide. There's currently no specific plans for any of this down here. It's going to be just open green space for now. I know there's lots of different ideas for the future. One of them, a bike path, getting a bike path through there, and some other options have been talked about. Not part of this project, and I really don't know where that will end up in the future. But we did make sure we left a corridor for access down into that site from 13th. So this is the basic footprint that we're looking at for the substation, this hatched area. We kind of give you some dimensions from different areas. This was an initial concept view, concept layout that Evergy came up with for our public meeting. Basically, a couple, inside a substation with a couple of poles, large poles, and bus bars going to some transformers that would step the power down, and then we would go underground going to the site, to the water treatment plant site. If I go too fast or you got any questions, just say so. I didn't want to take up too much of your time here, but I want to get through this. But Evergy offered some information comparing this substation to some others that they have. leaving room for the transformer bays. I was talking about on that layout. The Bel Air one that they were comparing to as chain link, that is not planned for this site. I'll get to the fence here in a couple more slides. And let's talk about the dead end structure. So those 2 poles, 75-foot tall poles. They are a considerable pole. With that, they gave like an isometric view, a little bit different than the concept view. But again, this shows those poles where the existing aerial would terminate in, have bus bars inside the site, and then transformers to step down. So one of them that they gave us that Evergy offered as a good comparison was down at 5151 South Webb Road, because it has a similar fence to what's planned, and from the outside it'd be very similar to what we're planning here. So this is a picture from that 5151 South Webb Road. So here you see what that pole looks like, their standard gate and their standard wall section. Bus bars are somewhat visible above it. It's a 9-foot wall. They do some other heights of walls, but 9 foot is their standard wall. And there's some more details on the wall in a minute. There would be a few things besides just the bus bars and the pole. So they've got like a SCADA antenna that would show, and some other amenities inside. So this gives you a little bit better idea of what the proposed wall would look like. This is again that 5151 South Webb Road. It's a textured concrete wall. And this is a detail from their plans for that wall section. And I believe the rest is some more pictures of that from that same substation. Again, showing the gates and the wall section. A little bit closer view of the wall. They do have 2 different ways, depending on the contractor and some other things that might be involved, whether the wall goes all the way down to the ground or if it has this concrete footing at the base. And Andrew could answer some more about that maybe if you need. But it basically has to do with some bidding and contractors and what's applicable to the site. And this is some more pictures of that 5151 South Webb Road. So it's a substantially longer, it's a little bit bigger site than what we have planned here on the 13th for the Northwest Water Treatment Plant. And that's really a quick run through of what we've got to show you. I'm not sure what specific questions there might be. What city staff is for is direction moving forward so that we can get Evergy under contract to get final designs and move forward. But we're trying to get with everybody we can up front. I don't know, Don or Andrew, if you have anything to add.
No, I don't have anything to add. I'm here for questions if anybody has any.
Okay.
Nothing to add. Ready for questions if you have any.
Yeah, Bill, I think you've covered everything from staff's perspective.
Yeah. Did you ever consider moving the site deeper into the lot?
So there were some considerations. I'll bounce back up. They're further. So at this north site, it can basically be built at the existing grade. Anywhere we go further south, it starts having to be built up. So there was a consideration of trying to build it down here. Between the fact that it would be built up about 4 or 5 feet, and we were concerned about the aesthetics of that. I mean, basically it would look like it's up on a hill out here. And so there was some concern about the aesthetics, and there was also some concern about the cost. You're talking a considerable more cost for the amenities and for doing that buildup and the earthwork needed to get the compaction and everything for that buildup. It's really, it's a floodplain issue as you go further south on that lot.
Okay.
I have
Any
two
other questions?
questions. I've got two questions. One question I have is there going to be landscaping in front of the concrete walls? And the other question I have is Evergy going to own the entire piece of property, and is it still zoned the same way, or did that change? I don't think it did.
So we are not planning on changing any zoning. Evergy would just own the substation site itself. So just this hatched area at the top would be the only thing that would be transferred to Evergy, and it would have a conditional use on top of the zoning, and that conditional use is what would allow the electrical substation. I'm sorry, you asked a question before that. I apologize.
Is there landscaping going around the concrete walls?
So I don't know that we've got into specifics on that yet, but I know that the planning commission process will end up requiring some landscaping around it. And I believe and either Don Sherman or Andrew can probably answer this a little bit more, but I know in talking to them, they are planning on some landscaping around it.
Yeah, some trees would be really nice, tall spaded trees.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some, we have talked about, so there's a little bit of a fence row there and there's some trees there. We are trying to work with Evergy to keep as many of those existing as possible, but adding additional around it, yes, it definitely would be planned.
So Bill, if I
Especially
can
for
jump
those
in
3
here.
homes in Spinnaker Cove. I'm sure they weren't happy.
I'd like to also add, if I could, we actually cannot put any vegetation below the transmission line that currently is there. I don't know if you can put your cursor around there, Bill, or not. Yeah, right there, and also on the south side of the substation. And I think we're going to be adjacent to the water line, where it would be up to the Spinnaker Cove. They want to put any vegetation along the shoreline.
Yeah, on this side, I'm not sure what we can and can't do in that reserve along there. That I'm not sure about.
So like you're saying, Alyssa, I don't think we can put any vegetation along the east side of the substation.
But along 13th Street, probably.
Except for, like Andrew said, under those existing lines,
Right.
They couldn't do that. But yes, the rest of that around there, yes.
And then the county owns the land to the south then?
To the south, the rest of this site,
Yeah.
well, it'd be City of Wichita.
City of Wichita, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Bill, we had a chat question from Jose asking, is this the first time to have a plant this close to residential neighborhoods compared to other communities such as ours?
So really, no. I mean, there's water treatment plants within residential areas in a lot of cities, especially major cities. It's not unusual at all, really.
Right, and we have smaller electric yards in other parts of the city, just right over there at 13th and 135th. I know we have one, so maybe not of this magnitude in other parts of city limits, but we do have them. So.
Yeah.
I also have a question. I'm curious to know that you mentioned, of course, that there's those existing poles, and those seem like, if I remember correctly, those seem like they're pretty high, those that cross over 13th and go through this land. What's the comparison to what is currently there now and the new poles that are going to be added for the substation?
I'd ask Andrew that question.
So right now we don't know for sure. The intent is the transmission line for the most part is going to stay intact, and we're just going to install structures on the north side and south side of the substation just to go into the sub. That's the only plans we have at this time. The structures that are going to be inside the substation, we're calling them dead end structures, will be 75 feet tall. So if you can see this picture Bill has up right now, you see the structure just south of, yeah, right there. It'll probably be about the same height as that. Like I said, we haven't started the design of the transmission yet to know exactly how high they would be.
Okay, thanks. And then Alyssa kind of alluded to a question I was going to ask, and that's, the people who this seems like it would negatively affect the most are those right there along Sand Plum Lane, which is that
This one?
that street. No, to the other side.
This one.
Yeah, that's Sand Plum Lane, and of course you're taking out their view of the lake and replacing with the concrete wall. As far as just like the grading goes right there, I can't think through what that might look like, but just what's the impact to those 4 homes or so right there that are going to be facing the substation instead of the pond.
So they will have a view of a concrete wall here. I'm not sure on the elevations what they would see over the wall or not. If that's what you're asking, I'm not real sure. I am pretty sure at least a couple of these have lower level walkouts, and I know those lower level walkouts are pretty much right at the same grade as where the substation would be. As far as like their upper level looking, I really don't know what that elevation view would be. I would mention, I think it was this house right here. It may have been this one. One of these 2 houses, the gentleman was at that public meeting, and he was one of them that was very adamant about, this was better than anything that had been proposed back there before. That's just kind of a side note I just thought of. But yeah, as far as the view from here, I mean, yeah, there's going to be a concrete wall, and there's going to be 2 large poles sticking up. As far as their upper view and what they're actually going to see, I'm not real sure, sir.
Thank you.
I will add in real quick what Bill's talking about, because there have been a lot of different people, developers, investors have looked at this property for different uses in the past, everything from nursing center to duplexes, a lot of dense use with a lot more homes and traffic. And so I think that's why that gentleman was probably happy, because this will be, nobody wants to look at the wall, but I think the idea of trying to preserve as many of those trees along that fence row would certainly help that. So.
Can I ask, just like, what's the ideal scenario here, right? Let's say we had a blank sheet of land, right? And you were putting your new water plant. Are substations typically adjacent to the plant or within a certain amount of yards away? I'm just sort of curious. I know you guys were working with what you had, but what, if you were doing this from scratch, where would it be ideally placed?
Ideally, you'd have the water plant right next to where the transmission lines were already there.
Okay.
And that's the reason we're trying to utilize these existing lines that are already in place without having to build new lines off of that.
Okay.
Yeah, if in a perfect world, you'd build your transmission plant where Sedgwick County Park is.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay.
But we don't want to do that, obviously.
Right.
Am I off base there, Andrew? Or
No, you're right on, Councilman Fry.
That's exactly
You're
right.
correct.
Will any of this construction cause 13th Street to be closed down to less lanes, or will it all be on the south side of 13th Street during construction?
So there might be some times when they would have, maybe I should let Evergy speak, but I would imagine there might be some times during construction they might close that further south lane, but it would just be for an intermittent, for like a delivery or something.
Correct. When we go to take delivery of the transformer and the power control center, also called the switchgear, the trucks will probably have to close that south lane just temporarily for a period of 3 to 4 hours just to unload the equipment.
Okay.
And then throughout construction there, when we build up the site, you'll see a lot of dump trucks coming in and out of there. And then once the site is built, start of the day, you'll see some crew trucks show up, and at the end of the day, you'll see them leave.
Okay, any more questions?
I just have one additional question, and this is more of a process question, I guess, probably more for Councilman Fry. in the site selection for the water treatment facility, was this discussed at that point, knowing that down the road we would need this additional substation?
Well, the reason the Northwest Water Treatment Site is located where it is because of the water sources and where they're coming from. Coming from Cheney Lake directly off of 21st Lake or 21st Street, it feeds right into, and then from north, it'll come in on Hoover, where the Equus bed, the aquifer and wells are. So having those confluence come to that site made it the perfect location to save costs. And then having this transformer line, or I'm probably not using the right terminology, but having it as close as it is really was the best of all the different scenarios. Added benefit is we're going to be able to bury this line, which really helps with eye pollution with all the extra poles. Have you seen some of the other parts of town where poles have become very much a lightning rod? Here, we're going to be able to do this in a way that minimizes that. So from that standpoint and everything combined, this really just made it fit the right way. So.
And you kind of answered part of my question just by saying that the closeness to the lines was one of the considerations for the final land choice.
Yep.
So that was a factor.
Yeah.
Knowing that you were close to these lines and it was likely that we'd have to tap into it somewhere along these lines. That
Right.
just wasn't part of the earlier process of saying this is the site location for the substation.
Yeah, and I will tell you that the Oversight Committee looked at some alternative sites within Sedgwick County Park along this pole configuration, but we decided that we didn't want to do anything to the park itself and put this right in the middle of it. I don't think our county friends would like that very well. And again, we want to try to preserve that acreage the way it is. Having this parcel now allows us to maybe do something from a city amenity like Bill was talking about, maybe a bike path that would connect Sedgwick County Park to the Y down on the south side, and having a multi-use path that connects you to that. We've looked at some other ideas for those parcels. It is pretty native state back there, some tall grasses and some volunteer trees. So it is kind of unique that way. Access is limited, obviously, but it could be something that has low use, low impact. Made it another nice idea at keeping some of the other uses that have been talked about for there, which I know a lot of the neighbors there at Country Acres were concerned about. So
thanks.
Yeah, a bike path through there, feeding it into Sedgwick County Park would be nice.
yeah, connecting to the Y and what's
Yeah.
already in place for some apartment down there on the south end, it would give those neighbors a quick, easy way to get to the park and utilize it. So
Yeah, that'd be nice. Okay. Any other questions for Bill and the team? If not, thank you. I guess you got your feedback now, right, Brian?
thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Bill and Adam, appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time and your service.
Okay, thank you much. And with that, we'll move to the fire station number 17 pilot program. Is Chief Snow available?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
We can see you too.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to join you this evening and explain the Station 17 pilot program to you. With me tonight, I have asked the Deputy Director of EMS Operations, Paul Masasi, so he's here to add his expertise in regards to medical calls. Deputy Chief of Fire Operations, Josh Pavelski, and Chief Alan Gaddis with Support Services, which brings to us the data and the technology side of it. I think Corey has a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. So Corey, can you share that screen with us?
There we go.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. If you can go ahead and advance the next slide. All right. When the Wichita Fire Department makes decisions regarding our resources, these are some of the guiding principles that we utilize to make those decisions. We take a look at the current practices or current alarm data, and we take a look at past alarm data. One of the other bigger factors is what we refer to as operational effectiveness. And we base that on this philosophy. Fire departments, we make our decisions based on possibility, which means it's our job to protect stuff. EMS, they make their decisions based on deployment, on probability. So in other words, what that means is wherever the people's needs are, that's where they provide their services. Another thing that we consider is taxpayer equity, and we do that for the entire city, not just pieces of the pie. The other thing that is very important to us is that we recognize that we are just one part of the public safety system countywide, which means that any decisions that we would make would have some type of an effect on one of our public safety partners, whether that be EMS, the dispatch center, 911 communications, whether that be Sedgwick County Fire, or any of our other partners like Derby, Andover, and so forth. And probably the thing that's probably forefront in our mind is what our core function is, and that is firefighting. And we always continue to look for ways to use pending data, updated data, or new technology when we go to make decisions. So we advance to the next slide. All right, several questions in the very beginning as we began our pilot program was, what kind of primary response area does Station 17 currently respond to? Station 17's primary response area is about 28 square miles. In 2019, they averaged 5.6 alarms per day, or about 6 alarms per day. And their average response time during 2019 was about 6.13 minutes. Now, response time is what we're measured on. That's part of our performance measurements. And response time is exactly the same thing as drive time. So one large or major component of response time is turnout times. What I mean by turnout time is the time the alarm comes in and our guys don whatever PPE they need. They get inside the apparatus and the wheels start turning towards the alarm. That's going to become important. We'll talk about it at a later slide. But it becomes very important when you start talking about response times in the future. One of the things that EMS has is they're light years ahead of us in regards to their predictive analytics, and they've been able to master that response time. So Deputy Director Masasi, he'll enlighten us and give us a little bit of additional information in regards to that and a little bit later in the presentation. So next slide, please. All right, what you're seeing in front of you right now is the primary response time for the primary response area for the Wichita Fire Department. And that's based on our mutual aid agreement. So you'll see transitional areas here. It's not the primary response time response area for the county, and it's not limited to just the city limits. So if you take a look at all of our outside stations, and what I mean by that are the ones that butt up to the transitional area, that dark blue or purplish color line all the way around the outside, all of our outside stations, and there's 10 of them, that all happen to have very large primary response areas. If you also were to go through there, there's out of the 10, 5 of the 10 house a single unit, and the other 5 house double units. So next slide, please. This slide is what we call a heat map, and it's just for structure fires. So we're taking a look at our fire call density. If you look at the little index that's there on the left, it says SG111 calls. Those are for the city of Wichita. The SG406 are for the county. So if you take a look at the area there, if you look at the red means that's our heaviest call volume as far as structure fires. So if you look in the core of the city, that happens to be our heaviest structure fire area. And the lighter it gets, the lesser number as far as structure fires. If you look at the green, it just works backwards. The darker the green, the less number of calls till it lightens up. and transitions over to the orange or reddish area. So, and also on here, we put the county stations and what their locations are. So next slide, please. All right, this slide here compares Station 16 and Station 17. And it's from the time period that we began to look at our calls. On station, if you take a look in 2018, both Station 16 and Station 17, pretty similar as far as the number of calls that they responded to. If you look at 2019, there's a difference there. Station 17's call volume begins to decrease and Station 16 stays relatively the same. And then you look over onto 2020, and it's a little bit projected because we're only halfway, well, about a fourth of the way through the month. So we've got a few weeks out, but the projection is that Station 17 will be similar to what it did in 2019, and that Station 16 will be slightly increased, but pretty similar to what it also did in 2019, in 2019. And what this slide also reflects is a couple different things. These are implementations of programs. One of the programs that was implemented in this time frame that we can attribute the decrease in calls at Station 17 is what we refer to as the implementation of the priority medical dispatching. That took place in 2018, and we saw the effects of it within that first year. Another thing is our agreements, our mutual aid agreements, and our response deployment models. We've changed our response deployment models by allowing our truck to respond outside the city of Wichita. And that's based on training, cross-training, collaboration, a variety of different things. Next slide, please. All right, what this is kind of a history of where we got to, how did we get to, this pilot program? So if you take a look back in 1999, the Wichita Fire Department hired a third party, and they provided for us what they call a tri-data study. A lot of people refer to that as a staffing study. It's basically 20 years old, and it provided a lot of good information. It projected out for 10 years. What should the city of Wichita's fire department look like 10 years from then? So basically out to 2010. Between the years of 2000 and the years of 2010, the department took a look at the recommendations from the tri-data study, and they began to make the service adjustments that they recommended. One of the service adjustments that they recommended was the inception of truck company functions to stop cross-staffing them, because prior to that we were cross-staffing them, and they said, no, you need to have dedicated truck companies. Just a real brief definition of the difference between truck companies and engine company operations. When we talk about our two big apparatus, an engine, their primary purpose is to put the fire out. So they're going to pull hose lines and they're going to put water on a fire and water supply. Truck, what their primary function is to support the engine companies and provide a safer environment. And what that means is they're going to try to get those hot gases and smoke up off of whoever happens to be inside that house, whether it be a civilian or whether it be a firefighter. And the second thing that they're going to do is they're going to perform searches. So they're basically going to do two fireground tasks at one time, if at all possible, if they have the staffing to do it. Otherwise, they would only do one fireground staffing or one fireground task. In 2010, fire industry, it was an entity called the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They performed some experiments. They took the 22 essential fireground tasks, and they ran a variety of different experiments with all different types of staffing, to find out the results. How can we be more efficient as a fire service? And the reason why that becomes important is because they provided us some very beneficial information on what our staffing should look like moving forward to provide the most efficient use of our current staffing resources. In 2016, we began to realize, as we were evaluating our data, we began to realize that our medical calls were increasing at a rate that would exceed what our current resources were. And so we designed a program which we referred to at the time as optimized deployment, and you probably heard some talk about it. Its original design was to place 2 EMTs in some type of a low profile vehicle and put them out on the streets and let them make what's called low acuity medical calls, or basically kind of the priority level that they weren't that serious, but they needed some help, and let them go out and address those. The reasoning behind it was that, why are we tying up these $1.5 million vehicles out on medical calls? Could we do something a little bit more efficient? So that was kind of the brainchild of what optimized deployment was. And at the same time, Dr. Gallagher entered the picture. And by Dr. Gallagher entering the picture, what ended up happening was, he came in as the medical director for Sedgwick County. And he said, at the time, we did not, as a county, have prioritized medical dispatching. And he said, yeah, I'm willing to do that. I think that this, that this community needs it. He goes, but I need 2 years worth of data. So for 2 years, we gathered the data. And in 2018, Dr. Gallagher implemented the medical prioritization dispatching. And from the optimized deployment group, in which we engaged all the stakeholders, anybody that it would touch, morphed, and I'll get into that in just a few minutes, but I'm going to let Deputy Director Masasi kind of talk about the medical prioritization, the dispatching, and the deployment then of EMS. So Paul, can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, sure thing. First of all, appreciate the opportunity to speak here this evening and provide a little information about some of the functioning and collaboration that we do across departments. Medical priority dispatching is a way that we achieve efficiencies, not just within our own department, but across departments. The old model of every 911 call gets an ambulance and a fire response simultaneously with lights and sirens it really represents the old, inefficient, and on many occasions a clinically inappropriate and lights and sirens response. And you could even argue that it was an unjustifiable liability and risk to the public, but also to our people as well. So what we do is, if we pool all of our resources together across departments and begin to utilize the capacity for the 911 system to assign callers into different priorities, then we can more strategically and certainly more efficiently assign which resources respond and how. And when I say how, I mean lights and sirens, no lights and sirens, or perhaps even it's not even appropriate for one agency to respond or not. So we began in, I think it was 2015, really, when we were at the drawing board. And if you were to consider a response profile as kind of a 9 or a 3x3 square, so you end up with nine cells. But with a fire response down one side and the EMS response down the other, you have different combinations of a fire response, lights and sirens, no lights and sirens, and no response, and the like across with EMS as well. So what you wind up with is 9 priorities that any 911 I need medical service call can get categorized into. So for one example that is something that a lot of folks don't consider is when it's appropriate to not even send the other agency. And there's actually 2 situations that I know Chief Snow mentioned, but one of them is what I would consider, I think it's priority 6 now, that fire department responds to, but EMS does not. And those calls typically are very either vague, unknown, there's not enough information, and it's unproductive or whatever the 911 protocol dictates. But a good example of that type of call would be what is used to get dispatched as check a man down call. In other words, someone's driving along the street, they see someone lying on the ground, they call 911, but they continue driving. They don't ever make contact with the person they saw on the ground. And so given all the data we have, what we know is very often, within a very tenth of a percentage of reliability, these calls are often don't even wind up with a patient. So it's just somebody sleeping or the guy checking the water meter. Believe me, it happens. So in those types of calls, EMS no longer responds. We send a fire squad, so there is an immediate response, or excuse me, a fire apparatus. It doesn't matter to us in EMS what apparatus responds, but there's an immediate response, and it's appropriate to respond without lights and sirens. On the flip side, there are calls where it's appropriate and EMS responds, but it's not appropriate to send the fire department at all. It's, in fact, I think she'll mention it saved her upwards of several thousand calls in terms of responses a year. So the idea is to assign the appropriate response profile, meaning the right apparatus in the right configuration from the right department to the call. And the other goal of MPDS was to reduce the inappropriate use of lights and sirens. The national standard for EMS, and this is a very new standard, is about 55% of the time, and we're pretty close. We're under 60% of the time responding to a call with lights and sirens. And so it certainly begs the question, why aren't you responding to all the calls with lights and sirens? And now that there's been about 2.5 decades worth of good scientific clinical research, clinically speaking, it's only justified to use lights and sirens to a medical call in a very, very small fraction. We're talking less than 5% of our total call volume is an act. If you were to look at the different clinical reasons, it's very, very rare where a response time or time savings is clinically justified. And we're also, again, when the dispatch system collects the appropriate information, given their interrogation system for the caller, they assign the priority and then we respond appropriately. So definitely efficiencies achieved across our departments.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul is exactly right. You know, like I said, we in 2016 began to see such a significant increase in our medical arms that we knew we were going to have to do something. The implementation of the medical prioritization of our dispatching center, the very first year alleviated 10,000 calls off us. And so basically what it did for us was it alleviated what we were concerned about as far as the number of medical calls outgrowing the resources that we had. But that group, and I believe Councilmember Fry was part of that group, but that group continued and saw a need. The optimized employment, the way that we originally designed it, didn't come to fruition in that particular incident. But what it did do was get us all in the room talking together, and we recognized what another need of the community was, and that was the mental health portion of it. And that's how ICD-1 morphed out of that. That program is still active, meaning we continually take a look at it. We continually evaluate our services. We're continually seeing how can we better serve the community jointly and collaboratively between all the public safety agencies. And then we morph on into the functional consolidation. You know, the fire departments, the county fire department and the city fire department since 1979 have talked about consolidation. Numerous studies and a significant amount of money has been spent on those consolidations. But in 2019, we actually sat down at the table and we talked about, you know, maybe not a total consolidation between the two departments, but there are ways that we can become more efficient. There are ways that we can work together, that we can provide to better utilize our resources and provide a better service for this community. And so we begin to address those. You know, one of the areas is in training. Another one is what I alluded to in the beginning, as far as changing some of our deployment models where we're sending a truck out into the county to help improve the safe environment, to make a safer environment for not only, like I said, the civilians, but also for the firefighters that are mitigating those incidents. And then in 2020, September 21st of 2020, after a lot of collaboration, a lot of looking at data, a lot of trying to evaluate, becoming more efficient and evaluating without any degradation in services, we implemented the Station 17 pilot program. On our horizons, we also recognize that a staffing report from 1999 that is 20 years old is outdated. There's been evolution both within the city, within the and within each of the departments within the county, that we needed another staffing study. But we also recognize that staffing studies cost 6 digits. And so as we begin to think about those kind of things, one of the ideas was, a staffing study is a one-time thing. If we purchase software similar to what EMS, like I said, they're light years ahead of us in the predictive analytics. If we purchase some software, we could get multiple uses out of it. It could be something that we utilize on a daily basis. So we secured the funding last year to buy some predictive analytics. We are in the final phases of purchasing that with the intention to have it implemented by 2021. Very excited about that because at the same time, Sedgwick County 911 Center is purchasing new computer aid dispatch. The predictive analytics is based on, it pulls the information from the computer aid dispatch center. So it'll be a great opportunity for them to have a new program, for us to get the data, and we'll be able to predict things and have information at our hands to make better informed decisions as we move forward. Next slide, please. This slide here just tells you that this is a result, these things that have happened since 2000 as a result of the Tri-Data study. The Tri-Data study made these recommendations that we add 3 new fire stations, that we increase staffing from 100 to 117, that we also have dedicated truck company personnel instead of cross-staffing them, that we take 2 of the engines that were located in the downtown area and relocate them. That's currently our engine 21 and our engine 22, which serve the outskirts of the city. That we add mobile data terminals in each one of our responding apparatus, which we've done. And then the last thing was to compose or develop a truck company program, which we've done that also. And we currently have 5 trucks that operate in the city. And they all have dedicated personnel that have mastered the specialized skill sets for those truck company operations. Next slide, please. So when we talk about the optimized deployment program, in 1999, when the Tri-Data study was actually took place, we didn't have the medical call type prioritization, so that didn't exist. What optimized deployment did for us, or through this medical priority dispatching, it reduced our low acuity calls. So like I said, in just the first year alone, it reduced over 10,000 calls for us. And what it also did then is, by reducing us not being tied up on those low acuity medical calls, it's allowed us to have units that are available for the higher medical emergencies. So in other words, we're arriving with the right number of people to get started and perform the best possible care that we can, or provide the best possible care that we can to the community. We also, in about 2014, we implemented Dr. Breathway, happened to be our medical director. She had a technique called CCR, also referred to as PIT crew. And the survivability and walking out of a hospital by the implementation of these techniques significantly increase someone's likelihood to survive if they experienced a cardiac arrest. If you take a look at, or you do any kind of research on it, it has identified 5 positions. 4 of them are the only ones that the Wichita Fire Department can actually hold, because the 5th one is the administration of drugs, and we're not allowed to do that. So when we show up on a single unit with 4, we can get busy right away. We don't need to wait on any other units. We can get started right away on PIT crew. which increases that person's survivability rates. Next slide, please. So we've evolved. Part of it's from the NIST study. If you take a look at the NIST study, the 22 fireground task in which they did experiments on, what they came out with, what they found was that 4-person crew is 25% faster than a 3-person crew. The 5-person crew, where you have a 3-person engine and a 2-person squad, that it did not decrease fireground task times. And that the most efficiency in regards to truck company operations is a 4-person truck company, because then they can split 2 and 2. 2 of the people go address ventilation, getting the hot smoke and gases off, while 2 people will initiate a search. And then the last thing, and I just got done talking about it, is the CCR with the pit crew instead of doing CPR. By having 4 people, we can initiate it quicker and we can enhance the survivability of that person. Next slide, please. So if we take a look at the operational profile, so if we look at Station 16 and we do it prior to us implementing the pilot program, Station 16 had 6 people assigned to it. 3 people operated off a truck company, 3 people operated off an engine. With only 3 people on the truck company and it being stationed where it is on the west side of town, oftentimes that truck will sit out there from 7 to 10 minutes before it gets enough staffing to actually perform more than just one fireground operation. If we can get those first 2 fireground operations where it takes care of ventilation, getting that hot gases and smoke off the person, plus initiate search, it creates a safer environment and a better opportunity for any civilians that are inside that home or that structure. And now with this pilot program, since all we did was move people, since we moved somebody else over onto truck 4, since it's going to be there by itself for a long period of time, it's able to initiate those first 2 fireground operations. Station 17, prior to the pilot program, it had 5 people, had 2 people on a squad, 3 people on an engine, and it cross-staffed for a total of 4 apparatus that it was responsible for. So it cross-staffed a tender and it cross-staffed a brush. After the pilot program, or currently now, they're operating with 4 people and they operate 3 apparatus. They continue to operate the engine, they continue to cross-staff with the tender and the brush. Next slide, please. So when I talk about our response partners, that is very important to us. Currently, we have a very cohesive environment and we train together at the same level. So anytime we make a decision, any type of deployment or resource decision, we have to consider our partners, because we're, like I said, we're just one small piece of a big system. We partner with City County EMS, we collaborate with the county fire, Eisenhower Airport. They currently now are credentialed EMTs. They currently now will come outside of the airport itself. For the longest time, they would not. Now they'll respond out to anything that the actual airport owns, and they'll provide medical services there. And, you know, and we continue to partner with our law enforcement partners. And also, you know, we're currently involved in some updating of and enhancing some of our mutual aid agreements with both Derby and Andover. Next slide, please. So when I talk about functional consolidation, you know, I said that we as public safety agencies got together and we all of us right now in the current environment that we're in, our leadership, we concentrate our efforts on outcome, not output, which basically means that we collaborate. We all are under the belief that the focus should be on the best utilization of our existing resources to increase the taxpayers' equity, and that the community then would reap the rewards of the service, no matter what patch is on your arm. So we truly do, we don't make decisions on islands. We try to offer the most efficient, best utilization of the taxpayers' resources to provide a level of service that not only meets but exceeds the community's expectations. Next slide, please. So when we talk about securing the funding to purchase some predictive analytic software, we did that. We realized that we needed staffing, but well, we thought the money would be best utilized to actually purchase the software instead of perform just a one-time staffing study. We are in the final stages of getting that purchased. Our intention is to have it, if COVID doesn't interfere anymore, then our intention is to launch that in 2021. But with that, I'm going to take a break and let Paul talk to you a little bit about Marvelous. Like I said, EMS is light years ahead of us. They currently have a predictive analytics software that is wonderful. They have a move up portion of it, which the software that we're planning on purchasing also has that. So your fire department may look totally different once we get this implemented. So with that, I'll let Paul talk a little bit about Marvelous to you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Chief. So just for awareness, Marvelous is a software that aids our 911 dispatcher and our field supervisors real time to make decisions about resource placement. And resource placement is kind of synonymous with deployment or unit deployment. And the whole reason for doing so, as Chief has mentioned, is to balance efficiency and effectiveness. I could, with EMS, I could promise everybody in the county would get a 5-minute response time to any and all calls, but I'm going to need a lot more ambulances and a lot more people, and obviously the budgets aren't just unlimited. So in order to most efficiently use the resources we do have to be good stewards, we have to balance the supply with the demand to a certain degree. And in EMS, the EMS domain, 911 calls vary on within two domains. One is geographic and two is temporal or time of day. So I could very predictably and to a very high degree of reliability tell you how many calls there's going to be for any hour of the day, for any day of the week, for any week of the year. I can tell you when, and I can also get pretty close as to where those calls will be. Because the best predictor of an ambulance, a call, 911 call for an ambulance, the best predictor for that is past data. Whereas we and humans, as Chief had said early on in her presentation, the fire departments deploy their resources based on the possibility of things happening, such as, physical buildings and homes, et cetera, catching on fire. We deploy our resources based on the probability of a 911 call for EMS, and it's human beings that call 911, and human beings have very predictable movement patterns. We have very predictable habits, and especially by time of day, et cetera. So the idea is that we, given this finite amount of resources that we have to serve our community, where are we going to put those at any given moment, while maintaining some of our customer service expectations for responding rapidly and in a timely manner, but also being good stewards. So that's what this software not only helps us plan for, but it helps the 911 dispatcher in real time and the supervisors allocate those units, the ones that are still available, to the system and put them in the right spots based on where we think the next call is going to happen. So it's, we sometimes find ourselves having to remind folks that, stations don't run calls, ambulances do, fire trucks run calls, not the stations. So when people say, well, let me see all your posts, well, that's great, but that doesn't mean that's where they are at any given moment. So we have to try and match the supply with the demand based on time of day and geography, and that's what that software helps us do.
Thank you, Paul. Next slide, please. So, oftentimes I'm asked the question, well, how long is this pilot program going to go on? Well, we're going to continue to evaluate it. We'll continue to gather data on it. and we'll adjust our services as we need. Our primary goal is to be more efficient with no service degradation. But at the same time, we're going to continue to gather the data for the next 2 to 3 years while we're working with our partners to provide the most efficient and high-performing service to all the stakeholders. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Chief, what kind of results are you seeing right now with the pilot program?
Well, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, Council Member Fry, but what I recall is that their response time in 2019 was about 6.13. Their current response time is about 5.6, right in that area, right over 5.5 minutes. So in reality, you know, the implementation of the pilot program has actually decreased the response time, which is our big performance measure.
And you're not seeing any loss in service at 17?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So
now there's always going to be voids. I can't plan for a void. You know, you can put 1,000 units at that station, and at some point in time, there's going to be a void. So yeah, there are voids.
And again, that's what Paul was talking about as well, trying to manage the resources with what we have and trying to best guess based on time and geography. So obviously, this is a very in-depth presentation. I wanted to make sure everyone at DAB had seen this because there's been a lot of talk in the community. A lot of people are concerned, especially folks in 17 service area, which again, almost 28 square miles. It's a big area, not as dense of a area like in the core. So it's, again, different needs, different resources. But anytime people see, oh, we're losing a firefighter or losing a truck, what's that going to mean? And they're concerned. And so what Chief is trying to do here, it makes a lot of sense. It's not something that we're just rushing off, and there's been a lot of other work done leading up to this. Everything from, again, how we assign calls, and again, as our demand has changed, again, more medical calls. As you guys hear the reports every month. What was it this month? 254 medical calls, and only 5 fires, right? And so trying to adjust and meet that demand and partner with the right folks and figure out where the best way we can do the resources. So again, I just want to make sure you all had heard this and why we're doing it and what we hope to achieve with it. Because again, there's a lot of talk, a lot of concern, and I don't know if any of you have heard any of this yet as DAB members or any of your neighbors asking about it, but I want you to hear it from Chief Snow. Like I said, she presented it DAB 4 earlier tonight as well. So anyone else have any questions or concerns or thoughts?
I'd like to compliment you on taking on the effort. I think it's wonderful you're working together.
Yeah, and it wouldn't work without our partners, to be very honest with you. You know, the enhanced relationships that we have, and it's not just me. I mean, I've been on the Wichita Fire Department for over 32 years, and this is one of the first times that I can recall that the leaderships of all the public safety have truly have their focus on the best interests of the community and the best utilization of all the resources to provide those services. So to me, it's very exciting. I am very honored to be a part of this leadership team in public safety.
Well, congratulations to all of you.
So any other DAB members have any questions? I see we have some other neighbors that are on here tonight that might have questions, but I want to hear from DAB members first.
Hey, Brian, I've got a question. The phrase taxpayer equity was used a couple times throughout the presentation. Whether it's the chief or you, could somebody just give me the Cliff Notes 101 on what that concept means when making decisions, taxpayer equity?
Chief?
Yeah, I can do that. What taxpayer equity basically means is that we're taking a look at all the taxpayers that reside within the city in regards to our emergency services and any associated funding that would often overlap. So we try to equate. We don't, for example, when I explained to you that the fire department is just one piece of a bigger system, that's what we're looking at. We're not going to concentrate our efforts on just one piece of the pie. It's the entire city, because that's what, the Wichita Fire Department has to serve, is the entire city.
Okay. No, that's terrific. Thank you.
Any other DAB member have a question?
Sorry, just a follow-up to that. So predictive analytics, I love the way EMS has described the way they use it. Sounds really exciting, and even more efficiencies likely at hand for the Wichita Fire Department. I'm curious, Chief, to the degree you're aware, do your counterparts at the county, are they using any predictive analytics software currently? Do you think that you might inspire them to do similar? Just curious.
Yeah, no, they are not currently, but once we get it, it'll integrate in with CAD. And like I said, if we have it and there's ability for me to share it with the county, I certainly will do that. They share a lot of things with us. I just think it would be better for the entire Sedgwick County if I have an ability to actually share that information.
And did you say that functional consolidation studies had been ongoing since 1979? Did I hear you say that? 79?
Consolidation studies have been going on since 1979. That's correct. About every 5 or 10 years, the study's done. This year, in 2019, what we took a look at is, instead of doing a consolidation study, what we did was look at what areas functionally can we provide better services to the community. And it seems to have some momentum. We're pushing that ball down the road, and we seem to get a lot of buy-in.
Okay.
Because it's about outcome. It's primarily about the outcome that we produce, not about the output. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any questions from the community members?
Chief Snow, I have a question for you. I thank you for your presentation. We're talking about the Tri-Data study, which was done in 1999. A lot of the neighborhoods we live in weren't even built then. In fact, the streets weren't even in. So we're kind of moving pieces around based on an old study. The thing that concerns me, and I worked for the fire department 29 and a half years, retired from the fire department. So I have a bit of experience as well. The lack of the number of units able to respond can truly impact our citizens. In the time that you've done your study, I know of 2 or 3 instances where we had critical patients or patients in cardiac arrest, and the unit was not available from Station 17. Tonight, about 6 o'clock this evening, Engine 17 or Ladder 1, I'm not sure which unit's running out of there now, maybe an engine now, went on a medical call. There was a cardiac arrest in the 1900 block of 10900 West Lotus. We sent Station 35. Station 35 is 6.6 miles away. That's about an 11-minute drive time if you're driving regular traffic. Driving emergency traffic, you might make it in 9.5. If someone is waiting to get CPR for 9.5 minutes, they're going to die. Now, we can't put a fire station on every corner, and we can't staff every station tremendously. But when you first started, almost every single fire station had 2 units in it, which provided us capacity. We can take care of the little alarms as well as the big alarms. A huge portion of our alarms are medical in nature. And when the squad and an engine, or a smaller truck and a bigger truck, are in a station, or even 2 big trucks are in a station, you have the ability to handle 2 emergencies within your response area. Station 17 is probably the largest response area. Now, I actually live in Station 21's area, but my understanding is when there's a building fire downtown, the station at Main and Murdoch goes to that fire. Engine 21 will leave their area and go downtown to Main and Murdoch and fill in. And so now we've got Station 17 not only handling the large area out there, but now they've got to handle Station 21's area as well. I feel like we're setting ourselves up to have openings to where we're not going to serve the citizens effectively. And I understand that the core area has a lot more fires. They have a lot more firefighters and a lot more equipment. But the fringe area, we talk about taxpayer equity. District 2 and District 5 probably pay 60 to 80% of the taxes, and we probably get 30% of the services. A couple of years ago, we took a unit out of Station 6 and put a smaller unit in there, which is a far east Wichita. And now we're taking away from far west Wichita. I know it's not going all the way into the center of town, but we are reducing the number of units able to respond to emergencies by the Wichita Fire Department. And I think we are reducing our capacity to handle emergencies by the Wichita Fire Department. Rather than predictive analysts, analytics like EMS uses, EMS figures out they need somebody in an area, they'll move an ambulance to sit at the Quick Trip at Central and 235 if they need to, or something like that. Fire departments across the nations have stations that they work out of. When there's a fire, we send other units to fill in. And it's harder and harder as we get to more single unit houses to find units to go fill in. We're gonna have to figure out, do we skip stations and only fill part of them and leave some empty? Because we don't have the capacity to do that. Truly, we need a Wichita Fire Department staffing study to determine how many people we need, because we have grown tremendously as a city and we have not added additional fire personnel. I appreciate your presentation and your time, but I think we are headed in the wrong direction. Rather than steal from one station to move it to another, we need to look and see if we need to just add people. If we have a job that needs 10 gallons of paint, let's not buy 7 and mix 3 gallons of water in. It's going to be thin coverage and it's not going to last very long. And that's where our fire department is today.
Captain Carr, I appreciate your comments. Let me help with some of the information, because some of the comments that you had, I think I need to enlighten you in regards to some of the information that you have. First of all, you brought up several different things. One of them was what you referred to as backfill. For example, Station 21 moves into the core when there's this a particular significant alarm or in the core of the city. That's part of our collaboration with the outside, with our partners. We have a backfill program with the county. So when that happens, one of the county units will come fill Station 21. So it isn't 17s that actually has to bear the burden there. In regards to capacity and having voids, we're always going to encounter that. It's you talk about 2 units in Station 17, and then there would have been 2 to respond to that. Well, not necessarily, because you were on the fire department long enough to know that there's oftentimes, I can't predict when somebody takes PBL, vacation time, and that unit's off track for that, or for some other staffing reason. So that becomes a void. I'll let Chief Pavelski is probably more intimate in regards to the moving of apparatus. So I'll let him make some comments and address some of the other issues that you brought up.
Thank you, Chief Snow. So in 2019, we started working more with Sedgwick County Fire on part of the function of consolidation. And part of that was discussing the things that we can help each other out with. One of those is the fact that we have the truck program and the 5 trucks operating within the city of Wichita. And one way is to enhance the fireground out around the transitional areas or outside the black line would be to send our truck. Also, for our battalion chiefs and division chiefs to operate together, but also our crews to train together. And that's what we've started to do. So in 2019, we've really started to work on, instead of a full consolidation, a functional consolidation. To us meant policies, guidelines, SOPs, working on the fireground together. So when we talk about communication, we talk about communicating the right way on the fireground. And so that is what we're doing, not just in the core of the city, but on the outskirts of the city. So what you're talking about is one instance of a fire in the core, where yes, that does happen. Engine 21 could go into the core area, and Sedgwick County Fire can discuss to help cover those areas. So we'll get into backfill. Backfill, what we would do, especially now with this pandemic, what I require is not to go in a station. Sometimes people report to the station's empty. That's actually, I'm going to hit on what the deputy director, Sassi, was talking about, was the efficiencies and the apparatus make the alarms, not the station. So we have apparatus that are taking care of the alarms in areas that are going to be reflective of our call density and our population density. We go off of those two, right? So when we look at moving the apparatus around, we are ready to make the call. It's just, it looks different. The structure is different. You may not get to sit inside the fire station, but you are ready to respond. When you're ready to respond like that, you also eliminate certain times. So if you're sitting inside the station, you have to get up and get dressed and then get in the apparatus. You might shave about a minute and a half off that response time by that apparatus driving around. So Chief Snow also hit it with the analytics software. We may be a totally different fire department than what we look right now, or that you're used to from your 29 years of service. So you might not be having fire apparatus sit inside stations all day. They might be mobile, ready to respond. So that could be the future of this department. We'll let that software to make those decisions. But I think that should answer most of those questions dealing with Engine 21. Now, when you mentioned the one incident that happened tonight, we're going to have those one incidences happen across the city, not just in Station 17's area. That goes back to the efficiencies. Our apparatus, EMS apparatus, they are out working. There can be a void. Absolutely, there can be. But we can't fix every single problem unless we put either a fire truck or an ambulance at every corner.
I agree that sometimes, these things are going to happen, but unfortunately, if we put ourselves in a spot where we have limited units to respond and we run into more emergencies, we're going to run into shortages. As far as fire trucks going and sitting outside stations or sitting in geographical areas, in the good weather, that's probably okay. In the middle of winter, that's not going to be very good on our fire trucks. We'll have problems with apparatus freezing and not being able to actually function as a fire truck when they get there if they sit outside in the cold too long. We were always very cautious to protect our units. I remember having to get hot water and run it into the pump one night because the pump was freezing up because we'd been outside and it was 5 or 10 below with some pretty good wind chill for an hour or two. So I really think we need to look at a fire department staffing study and actually figure out where we're at before we make a lot of changes that are going to impact people's lives. When that fire station 17 opened, it had an engine and a squad and 5 people assigned to it. I don't know what's happened that's changed to where we don't need as many people 20 years later, or actually it hadn't been in service quite that long. I think it was early 2000s that it opened up, but I don't know what's changed that's lowered the need for firefighters in that particular station. I realize that Station 16 and putting 4 on the truck is a good thing, but is it worth the expense of reducing Station 17? Thank you for your time.
We appreciate your comments. That's why we think it's really, really important that we continue to collaborate with our other public safety agencies so that we can provide the best care to the community. So appreciate your comments.
Yeah, and Tim, I appreciate your comments too. You and I have had an ongoing discussion on this, and I know you're coming at this from the right place. So again, thank you for your input and sharing your knowledge as well. So.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking this up and at least having the presentation for everybody to look at, and maybe you'll get some more feedback. Hopefully we can.
But again, this is a constantly evolving challenge for not only our department, but Sedgwick County, EMS, everyone. And we're trying to, hopefully, I'm pushing for some type of a long-term master plan study, whether it's not just staffing, but also station houses, equipment, everything. All together. We've been doing that for police. It's time for fire to have that same level of information and history, so we can build it for the future the way it should be built. So
I think that'd be awesome, because the way our stations The old stations are a lot closer together. As we get further out from the
Mhm.
core of the city, the stations are a lot further apart.
Yeah.
If you're talking one unit there and two, then, it just makes the drive times a lot worse. And that's the one thing that we can't change is how long it takes to drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe the use of data analytics will help a study someday too. So, okay, any other comments?
So we'll continue to provide updates as Chief Snow's study and everything that's going on with this continues to get new information and pass along. If you guys hear stuff, please share it with me. Because again, this is all part of a bigger solution. So I appreciate you taking the extra time with us tonight, Chief Snow. I know you did 2 presentations, but I thought it was important for the DAB members to hear this because it's your neighbors that are probably going to stop you and ask you about it. So
Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate you letting us have the opportunity to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Would anyone like to make an motion to receive and file the reports?
Yeah, so moved.
I second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Any final comments, Brian?
I forgot to mention this earlier. I will be ringing bells for the Salvation Army Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Dillons at Central and Mays. I will have one of my special suits on. And then Saturday from 2 to 4 at Sam's Club. On Saturdays, all $20 bills are matched by an anonymous donor. So come out and see me at one of these. They need bell ringers and donations this year more than ever. So they've got fewer bell ringers out because of COVID. And obviously fewer people out shopping and so forth. So the demand is great, but the need is greater. So, and it's fun. If you've never done it, I highly encourage you to sign up for a shift. It is so much fun. You'd be amazed at the reactions I get.
Good for you.
You need to join me, Dennis, in a Superman outfit.
Yeah.
I know you have a suit.
If I were in summer shape, I would be there. I'm in COVID dad body right now. So get at me next year for sure.
Hey, Brian, which Sam's store are you going to be at?
The one at 29th and Mays.
And it's
I
the
only do my bell ringing at in District 5.
Right. Oh, okay. Sorry.
So the one at 29th and Mays.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Again, appreciate y'all spending the extra time with that. It's an important discussion on the fire. I've been getting hit by a lot of firefighters and retired firefighters, and they're very concerned, and it's legitimate, and I get it. But it's going to be a continuing discussion. So I want to make sure you all had as much information as possible.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Cool.
And with that, we can adjourn and see you next month in January.
Merry Christmas,
year.
everybody.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.